Annette Louise Morgan was born in the late 1950s and raised in Warners Bay, a suburb of Lake Macquarie near Newcastle, New South Wales. After finishing high school, the intelligent, kind and ambitious young woman achieved a place studying science at the University of Sydney. The course started at the beginning of 1977, but over the span of her first year of study, Annette came to the realisation it wasn't the right fit for her. In October 1977, she returned home to attend an interview for a trainee radiologist position at the Royal Newcastle Hospital. Annette passed the interview with flying colours and was offered the role. Thus began a new chapter in Annette's life, one which she hoped would lead to a career in nursing. On the afternoon of Friday, October 28, 1977, Annette left her family home on Jonathan Street, Warners Bay, and travelled by train to Sydney to stay with university friends. Annette was well liked and had made many connections during her 9 months at university. It is understood that some of her friends may not have yet known about her change in circumstances and her new job as a trainee radiologist. Part of the reason for the visit was to tell them in person about her exciting news. That night, Annette stayed with a female friend on Wigram Road in the inner city suburb of Glebe. Before going to sleep, she telephoned a male friend who was a student of St Paul's College, an all-male residential college which was part of the University of Sydney. St Paul's College building is located 2 kilometres, about a mile south of Glebe. It stands on 8 acres of land off City Road, also known as Prince's Highway, or the A36. Founded in 1850, St Paul's is the oldest university college in Australia, with a long history and a reputation for being chosen by some of the country's wealthiest and most influential families. 2 former Australian Prime Ministers had attended St Paul's, and the son of a former Prime Minister, Malcolm Fraser, was attending the college at the time. Its list of alumni include Rhodes Scholars, QCs and prominent doctors. In 1970, there had been a motion to make St Paul's a co-educational institution and allow women students, but it was rejected by 90% of the student body. In 1977, the motion was tabled again. This time, only 3 students voted in favour of a co-ed policy. St Paul's was viewed by many as a symbol of male privilege. Annette telephoned her friend at St Paul's to make arrangements to meet with him early the following morning. Back then, students did not have mobile phones or even individual landlines directly connected to their rooms. There would have been 1 telephone per dorm corridor or block, possibly positioned in a central lobby or communal space. Annette's call was answered by a male student, who, as far as I can see, has never been identified. He told Annette that her friend was out, so Annette gave him a message to pass on about her coming to the college early next morning. The male student wrote this information on a piece of paper and pinned the note to the outside of Annette's friend's dorm door. Annette awoke early to the beautiful late spring Saturday morning, with the sun shining and the temperature already warm. The 18-year-old dressed accordingly and slipped on a blue dress, loose-fitting, bone-coloured top, and blue, platform-type shoes. The look was accessorised with a gold wristwatch, gold bangle, and blue handbag. At 7:15 a.m, Annette left the house and made her way down Glebe Point Road toward the university campus. The total distance was 2.5 kilometres, or 1.5 miles, and would have taken approximately 25 minutes on foot. To save a bit of time, Annette took a shortcut through a hole in the perimeter fence, or possibly a small gate, and walked through the university grounds. Annette made it as far as St Paul's Oval, which was situated in front of St Paul's College. 2 other colleges, Wesley College and the Women's College, are also in the vicinity. The Oval was used for various sporting activities, And indeed, a cricket match was scheduled to take place in just a couple of hours. The grass in the centre of the oval was kept short, but around the edges it had been allowed to grow long, which hid a small 4-metre deep gully along the perimeter. Annette never crossed the oval to complete her journey. Persons Unknown is a true crime podcast dedicated to unsolved murders and missing persons cases from all over the world. I'm John. I live in Wales, UK, and I research, write and produce this podcast. New episodes are released every other Monday. If you'd like to become a supporter of the podcast, please see the link in the show notes. For as little as the price of a cup of coffee a month, you can help to ensure these historical and lesser-known cases from around the world are read and gain exposure. The show notes are also where to find social media details, information about the sources used for each case, and transcripts for all the episodes. If you enjoy the podcast, please consider leaving a review on your app. They make a real difference, and I love reading them. Finally, you can help others hear about Persons Unknown by sharing and recommending on social media. Thank you so much for listening. Now back to this week's episode. At 9:50 a.m, a man from the inner west suburb of Erskineville, a 20-minute walk from the university, was making his way on foot across the oval. Some reports say he was jogging, but regardless, he was on his way to the swimming pool in neighbouring Victoria Park. In the small gully on the edge of the oval, he stumbled upon the partially clothed body of a young woman laying on a heap of rubble. The location was 200 metres from City Road. The body was soon identified to be that of 18-year-old Annette Morgan. Police arrived and searched the vicinity for clues, but shockingly, the cricket match due to start on the oval at 10 a.m. was only delayed for a couple of hours, and still went ahead in the afternoon. This might give the impression that life went on as normal at the college, but the warden of St Paul's, Reverend A.P.B. Benny, told gathering news reporters that students and staff were devastated and shocked by the murder. A post-mortem observed the back of Annette's head had been bashed in, and there were bruises around her neck. It was determined that the cause of death was from a fractured skull. There were numerous fractures, and strangulation. No murder weapon was discovered nearby, and it was quickly ruled that most probably fists and hands had caused the damage to Annette's skull, rather than a blunt object. Medical examination estimated the time of death was between 8 and 9 a.m. It was stated that Annette had been sexually assaulted. Annette's wallet, containing about $60 was missing from her handbag, and it was presumed her killer took it. It was a woman's wallet, mid-green in colour, and made by the brand Buxton. It measured 11.4 centimetres by 8.9 centimetres, and inside was Annette's student ID card. Police asked the public to look out for the wallet, as it was believed the killer would discard it, and it could hold some evidentiary value. As far as I am aware, the wallet was never located. 7 detectives from Regent Street Police Station and CIB Homicide were put on the case. This number grew to 16 within a few days, and colleagues from Balmain Police Station later joined the investigation. Inquiries were made in the surrounding residential areas, and students of St Paul's College were interviewed to see if anyone recalled anything suspicious. There were 180 male students residing at the college at the time. I do not know how many were questioned, but a large proportion were. Not one student reported seeing or hearing anything. Investigators also spoke with academic staff. The sub-warden of St. Paul's College was in his office overlooking the Oval at the time of the murder. He had been in there working since 6 a.m. He said he saw and heard nothing, noting that the long grass obscured from view the small gully where Annette's body was found. In a hunch that the killer may try to involve themselves in the aftermath of the crime, plainclothes detectives attended Annette's funeral to observe those present. The service took place on November 2nd at St. Mary's Catholic Church in Warners Bay. Annette was well respected by those who knew her back at home and in Sydney, and over 500 mourners were in attendance to join with the family to remember her. Annette's family were left permanently scarred by the murder, and her traumatised parents never spoke publicly about what happened to their daughter. Police discovered through conversations with women students from the co-ed colleges at the university that there had been a series of incidents on the university grounds involving what the Sydney Morning Herald, October 31st, 1977, referred to as trespassers. It was known that people from the surrounding suburbs would regularly cut through the university grounds, often walking the same route that Annette had followed. One student said there were attacks on female students every couple of months. This information led police to say they believed Annette probably did not know her killer. It was more than likely she had been attacked by someone who had followed her into the grounds, or by someone lurking near the Oval, waiting to pounce on their unsuspecting victim. Investigators thought the man may live locally. Just 2 days after the murder, on the afternoon of October 31st, a lead came to light when a witness came forward about something they had seen. The witness, described as an elderly man, was on City Road early on the morning of Saturday, October 29th, around the time of the murder. The witness saw a man, aged 35 to 40 years old, with blood stains on his trouser legs, walking across City Road pedestrian bridge. This location was just a matter of minutes from the crime scene, and the blood-stained man was walking away from the university. A detailed description of this man was put out in the press. He was 5'7", 173 centimetres, with a solid build. He had a suntan complexion, with sandy hair brushed forward on his forehead. He had a prominent, broken nose, which was bent towards the side of his face. The man was wearing a navy blue coat and long, bone-coloured trousers, which, as well as the bloodstains, had a grease mark on the right knee. An identikit of this man was released, and police spoke of a good response from the public, though ultimately no breakthrough followed. An identikit was also released of another man police were trying to trace. This man was seen on the university grounds around the time of the murder. He was younger than the man with bloodstained trousers, aged between 20 to 25, and had a slender build with a dark complexion. He was clean-shaven and had shoulder-length dark hair. It was noted that he was well-spoken. This is the identikit that is seen in modern-day reporting on the case. For some reason, the identikit of the older man seen with bloodstains on his trousers is never printed and seldom referred to in modern write-ups. Following up reports about other incidents involving trespassers on campus, Sydney-based newspapers ran stories about other attacks and incidents of harassment at the university, though often the alleged perpetrators were said to be male students rather than outsiders. Women student leaders from the Australian Union of Students said there was a problem all over the country. They claimed women were frequently harassed, attacked, raped and violently assaulted on university campuses across Australia. Most women felt intimidated and did not report these issues to police or university authorities. However, according to the Union of Students, counselling services and health centres were dealing with numerous incidents of this nature. The University of Sydney Health Centre disputed these claims, saying they were not getting such reports, and instances like those described by the Union of Students were rare. A rape crisis centre in the nearby suburb of Glebe said the claims of the students were accurate. Just a few days after the murder, a forum was organised by concerned University of Sydney students from the Women's Collective of the Student Representative Council. At the meeting, attended by 100 students, it was suggested that male students at the university viewed rape as, quote, just part of the fun. The accusation was levied that there was a culture of intimidation that prevented survivors coming forward to report instances of rape and sexual assault. It was said this intimidation came from both men and women. An example was given of a rape survivor having a bucket of water poured over their head to stop them reporting the crime. It was also alleged at the forum by a student named Sally that a rape had occurred on the grounds of another University of Sydney college, St John's, earlier in the year. Students also brought up an incident that had occurred on campus at Fisher Library. Several female students were approached by a man who acted in an obscene way, but library staff ignored the women, even though the man persisted in his harassment of some women for up to an hour at a time. In response to these claims, the warden of St Paul's College, Reverend A.P.B. Benny, said he had never heard such libellous nonsense. A spokesperson for one of the co-ed colleges that was part of the University of Sydney implied there was not an issue in colleges where women and men lived and studied side by side. They added that the rape is fun culture stems from a philosophy that views women as objects. The issue provoked several letters to the Sydney Morning Herald by disgruntled students, refuting the idea that there was any way a culture of rape at the university. The atmosphere was particularly febrile as it came in the midst of wider controversy following recent comments made by a prominent New South Wales judge. In the aftermath of 3 rape trials in the Wollongong and Nowra area, a judge said that the women survivors were stupid for accepting lifts from a man without expecting to pay for the lift through sex. On the same night the forum took place, St Paul's College held their end-of-year dinner, where goodbyes were said to departing students. When academic and administrative staff left the event at 9:45 p.m, about 40 of the students went to the common room to hold their annual award presentation. This was a tradition that had gone on for decades, with many of the awards being voted for by the students of St Paul's. It was mostly for silly things. For example, there was the Buzzy Burke Blade for meritorious stirring, or the Telephone Award for the student that had spent most time on the phone. One of the awards had far more sinister connotations. The award was called the Annual Cup for Animal Acts, and was not voted on like the other awards, but presented to a student who occupied one of 2 rooms. Disturbingly, on the cup was inscribed the Latin phrase, Si illa non fornicate verberate. If she won't fornicate, beat her. To reiterate, this award ceremony was just a few days after Annette's murder. 2 male students involved in what the Sydney Morning Herald, November 26, 1977, described as, quote, a group sex experience, gave the award to a 3rd man who had also been involved in the same incident. This incident had taken place 3 months earlier. The men named the woman a University of Sydney student who they claimed they had sex with in an attempt to publicly shame and humiliate her. On hearing this, several students got up and left the room, and one reported the incident to university authorities. The following day, the young woman who had been named also complained to the university and in at least one interview, I think with university leaders rather than the police, said she was raped. A statement by the Student Representative Council also referred to the incident involving the 3 men and the woman as sexual abuse. The college council met to discuss how to handle the matter. 20 women gathered outside the university to demonstrate, holding placards with slogans such as "Rape of one woman is rape of all women." All 3 male students were suspended and I believe were expelled, though this was not for the actual sexual act, but the way they behaved after. I do not know if they faced any criminal charges. At the time, police investigators maintained their belief that the attack on Annette Morgan was carried out by someone outside of the university. Statistics from rape crisis centres show that the majority of women know their attacker, but police did not think this was true in Annette's case. No evidence has been produced to connect any student or person who worked at St. Paul's with the murder. While this is true, I can't help but think about the telephone message that Annette left with the students at St. Paul's. This was pinned on the friend's dorm room, and many people could have seen it and known that Annette was coming over early the next morning. This detail concerning the telephone message I have only come across in one source, Sydney Morning Herald, June 6, 1987. But it could be significant. In January 1978, Channel 10 started a new weekly segment called Police File on their Eyewitness NewsHour programme. The very first episode featured a reenactment of the Annette Morgan case. Following the broadcast, 40 calls came in from women who said they had been attacked in the vicinity. A number of leads were said to have been developed. Several months later, at the end of May 1978, a man was interviewed by police about Annette's rape and murder. The unnamed man was being held in custody on another undisclosed matter. I do not know what came of this lead, but as far as I can see, this man was never charged in connection with Annette's murder. After many years of relative inactivity, Annette's unsolved murder was given some long overdue publicity in the aftermath of a particularly brutal and infamous crime. On February 2, 1986, 26-year-old Annette Cobby was kidnapped whilst walking back from a train station in Blacktown, New South Wales. 2 days later, her brutalised body was found a few miles away on farmland. Annette had sustained a prolonged and vicious assault in which she had nearly been decapitated. This heinous crime shocked the country, and the subsequent investigation led authorities to arrest 5 local men. In June 1987, all 5 were found guilty of Annette's rape and murder. The rape and murder of Annette Cobby highlighted the ongoing problem of violence towards women. As a result, the New South Wales state government used the opportunity to introduce a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for the rape and murder of Annette Morgan. This decision was met with a mixed response from members of Annette's family. Annette's cousin, who was living with Annette at the time of her murder, voiced her frustration at why a reward wasn't provided a decade earlier. She posed the question, why did some cases get rewards straight away, while others didn't? On what grounds were these decisions made? In Annette Cobby's case, a reward of $100,000 was offered almost immediately, and Annette's cousin believed the case would not have been solved without it. The police seemed sceptical that a reward offered so long after the crime would have any effect. A senior police spokesperson said the chances of a reward leading to a case being solved is almost negligible. Indeed, between 1977 and 1987, only 3 cases in New South Wales had been solved after the state government had offered a reward. Despite this, Annette's cousin was still hopeful someone might remember something. Whoever had committed the murder would have had blood all over them and would have arrived back to their home in a mess. Surely a friend or family member would have noticed something. After 10 years, the trauma that had befallen the family continued to affect them. When talking about the attack on Annette, her cousin said she hoped that, unlike Anita Cobby, Annette was unconscious when she was raped. Over recent decades, St. Paul's has been in the news on a few occasions concerning the misogynistic behaviour of some of its students. In 2009, some students from the college were found to be a part of an anti-consent, pro-rape Facebook page. In 2017, women came forward anonymously to speak of the misogynistic verbal abuse and common practice of slut-shaming they had experienced at the hands of male students from the college. A subsequent 2018 review detailed a tradition called the bone room ritual. This would see male students invite first-year women students into a room full of mattresses where they would ply them with drinks in order to have sex. The accusation was that this practice was not always consensual. As a result of the review, the warden of the college resigned. Once again, it is worth reiterating that despite the many issues the college has had concerning accusations of sexism, there has never been any evidence to connect Annette's murder to St. Paul's. In 2023, St. Paul's became a fully co-ed facility, and women students were admitted for the first time. Annette Morgan's unsolved murder haunted many of the detectives who worked on it long after they retired, including Detective Bill Duff and DS Don Worsley. Sadly, chances for a resolution in the case were dealt a heavy blow when in 2017 the Daily Mail reported that most, if not all, the forensic evidence linked to Annette's case had been lost. The case underwent review by New South Wales Police that year, but no new developments had been reported. If you have any information about the 1977 rape and murder of Annette Louise Morgan, you can call Crime Stoppers anonymously on 1-800-333-000.